Hey everyone, welcome to another sketching tutorial. Today I want to answer a viewer's question. The question is, how can you find the vanishing points for a group of buildings that are uphill or downhill? So I'm going to split this tutorial into three parts. In this first video that you are watching, I'm going to teach you how to find the vanishing points for a group of buildings, such as these buildings that you see in front. I'm going to tell you why it's useful to find vanishing points, how you can use them for drawing. And in the second video, I'm going to have a drawing example featuring a group of buildings that are going upslope. And the third tutorial will feature a group of buildings that are going downslope. By the way, if you guys want to practice along, you can download the reference photo from the video description below. And do consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can make more tutorials like this for you guys on YouTube as well as on Patreon. Alright, let's take a look at this reference photo. So if I'm out sketching on location and I see a scene like this, the first thing I would do is to find out where is the vanishing point, or where are the vanishing points. In this particular scene, there are several buildings, one here, one on the left, one in the background, and maybe two in the very far background. And these buildings, they are not parallel to each other, which means all these buildings, they have their own vanishing points. For buildings that are down a straight road, for buildings that are just side by side each other, they are going to share the same vanishing point. But for this particular scene, you can see this building is at an angle, this is at an angle, this is also at an angle. So there are several vanishing points. So let's try and find them. The main reason why you may want to find vanishing points is if you are sketching on location, knowing where the vanishing point is can help you draw more accurately. I've just imported the photo into Procreate, and let's find a vanishing point for this building first. So I'm going to draw some overlaying lines on top of the diagonals to find the vanishing point. So let's go with the top here first. Let me just make the line thicker. I think it's the thickest already. And we can draw one line here and one here. So it seems like the vanishing point for this building is right here. And how about this building here? So let's switch to a different color. Let's switch to yellow. This building may look like it has the same vanishing point as this building here, but we will see. So again, we can draw a line through the diagonal line at the top. It's not that straight. This is not, let me change to a different color. So usually when I'm out on location, I would just straighten my arm, lock my elbows, and use my pencil or pen and measure the angles and see where they converge. So here we have another line, and here and here. So it seems like this building here on the right side, it has a different vanishing point compared to this building here. How about this building on the left side? Let's switch to a different color. Okay. So as long as the buildings are not facing each other, like from the front, directly from the front, they are going to have different vanishing points. Okay, so this building seems like it has a vanishing point towards the far right side, somewhere around here. And for the buildings in the background, let's use green. You can see the angle here, it's not that steep. So when you have an angle that is almost horizontal, the vanishing point will likely be very far out on the left or on the right side. So for example, to find a vanishing point for this line, it's going to be very far out on the right side. And it's not easy to find this vanishing point because I cannot see the bottom, so I have to use this line here, this row of windows here to do that. Okay, so right, somewhere there. All right. For this particular scene, the vanishing point for this building and this building is more important compared to this building and this building, because if I'm drawing this on location, I can draw this building first and then draw the lines pointing to the vanishing points, because the points are on the page. I can draw them to the point. Whereas for this building, the points are out of the page, so not as useful, but you can still draw them. All right, let's move to the paper to show you what I mean. So I usually start my sketch by drawing the largest element first, and once I'm able to fit the largest element, I will be able to fit everything else on the page. As much as possible, I try to draw a location, but sometimes it's just easier to work with a reference photo, especially when it comes to teaching. So let's draw the largest element first. In this case, it will be this building on the left side. I'm going to draw the longest line there, and there is a truck at the bottom, so let's draw the truck, which is in front, overlapping the building. Okay, some wheels there. So the vanishing point for this building here is actually on top of the truck here. So once I know where that vanishing point is, I can draw the next building here, and I can draw those diagonal lines pointing to the vanishing point, like this. So there are two ways to draw this line. You can draw this from observation, or you can draw this by pointing it to the vanishing point that you have found earlier. I usually use the second method because it's more accurate. And this is the bottom. There are a few cars here. Let's not bother with them first. So this is the diagonal line. I can use this vanishing point to draw the windows as well. Just make sure that all the top and bottom of the windows point to the vanishing point. So there is this row of windows here, like this. And here I'm using little dots here to represent the bottom of the windows. The top and the bottom of the windows will all point to the vanishing point, so it is all these little details that will create or give you that perspective, that sense of perspective. So now if you take a look at this quick sketch, you can see it's rather convincing. The perspective is rather convincing. There are some vehicles here. I'm just going to use these scribbly lines to represent them. Now for this line here, I don't need to find the vanishing point. I can just draw it from observation. Next, let's draw this building here. So this building, the corner of this building is higher than the corner of this building. So let's draw this vertical line down here. It goes all the way. This line is nice because it overlaps this building here. So this building has a different vanishing point compared to this, and the vanishing point for this building is somewhere around here. Sometimes I may place a dot there so that I don't have to place my finger there. Sometimes I use my finger to let me know that the vanishing point is there. So in this case, I'm going to use my finger. So the top of this building, this diagonal line, will be like this. So this line is quite steep. For me to draw this line on location based on observation, it's going to be quite challenging. Usually I would draw this like at a more horizontally. Okay, so this is the top, and we have another top here that is like this. And let's draw the second row or third row of windows here. So we have some windows here. And remember, the top of the window will go to the vanishing point as well. Okay, we have some windows here as well. As the elements go up further and further, the lines will become steeper and steeper. And as the elements move down closer to the ground, those elements, the diagonal lines will become more and more horizontal. So for example, here there is a balcony. Actually, there are a few balconies. So this, you can see this line, it's more horizontal already compared to this line here, which is steeper. There seems to be some shade here. Another window here. Okay, some balcony. So far, I've drawn this using the vanishing point. If I draw this from observation, it may not be that accurate, and also it can get quite tiring to be always measuring the angle. It's very tiring to always look at your drawing and look at the scene and compare. So it's easier to just find the vanishing point and draw those diagonal lines to the vanishing point. And now let's draw this building on the left side. So the vanishing point for this building on the left side is actually quite far out on the page on the right side. So in this case, the vanishing point is not that useful for me. So to draw this building, I would actually just draw the diagonal lines based on observation. So again, I'm going to stretch out my arm to measure the angle and try to remember the angle, and just draw the draw the line like this. So this is the top. Let's try and measure the angle at the bottom. It's like this. I can place the bottom lines, the lines at the bottom for the windows like this, and I can maybe mark out a few points here for the bottom of the window. So sometimes I like to place these little dots to help me get some alignment. So I'm going to place one dot here, and one dot here and one dot here, so that later on when I'm drawing the windows, I can use those dots. I'm imagining this imaginary line there. So when I'm drawing the windows, I'm actually drawing those windows aligned to those lines. So this is a bit easier. In this case, I'm drawing, as mentioned, based on observation and some techniques on dividing the scene into smaller and smaller portion. Right, here I made a mistake. Actually, these two windows, they don't look that convincing. The reason why these two windows don't look that convincing is because these two lines are almost horizontal, when in fact they should not be horizontal. So the lines should actually look like this to give you that illusion of perspective. Yep. So a slight difference in the angle will actually affect the perspective, the look of perspective. For the buildings in the background, again, their vanishing points are either on the far left or on the far right, so I don't have to use those vanishing points. I will just draw those buildings in the background just based on observation. So we have one building here, another one here, come down like this. One here, this one goes up here. It's quite fun to draw perspective, buildings in perspective, because once those buildings are drawn, it gives you this look, this feeling of they are actually solid. You can feel the form of the buildings. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So notice here, I've drawn the big shapes first, and then later on I can fill in the smaller shapes. For windows in the background, in the far background, sometimes I may just represent them with little dots. All the windows here are affected by perspective, so make sure that they are going in one direction. So the alignment or the grid of this window should be affected by perspective. The pen that I'm using is a Sailor fountain pen with a zoom nib, which can produce very thick lines, which is easy for the camera to capture. So sometimes when you have to draw like a lot of windows, it's good to divide the building into half and then draw a few windows here and then draw some windows there and then just fill in the details in between. Drawing or getting the perspective right is important because if your perspective or proportion is off, then everything is going to look a bit off. Not just that, it's important to get the perspective and proportion right at the start so that later on when you fill in the details, it's going to make your scene look better. But if you get the perspective wrong right at the start, then no matter the details you add later on, they are not going to make the perspective right, because you already got that wrong right at the start of the sketch. So it's very important to spend some time at the start before you sketch, just to slow down, find out where the vanishing points are, and just basically just slow down and really try and get the perspective right. So once again, when drawing the windows here, I'm using the vanishing point there because it's very difficult to get these diagonal lines right at the right angle. Okay, so this sketch is pretty much done. I can continue to add more details if I want to, but for someone who is actually living at this place, if he or she looks at this scene, he or she will be able to identify this scene even without the details, right? So if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. And do consider supporting me on Patreon. On my Patreon page, you get access to even more in-depth tutorials, not just on drawing, but also on using colors. So in this case here, I'm actually just using a gray wash to very quickly paint this scene to get some light and shadow going on. Alright, see you guys in the next video, in the next tutorial, part 2.